Thank you. Thanks for coming today to talk about the wastewater project for Ingonish. We have an agenda, but first we're going to go through the rules of a calm, safe environment to have a good discussion. So these are the rules. Respectful communication. Please provide each speaker with a chance to present. Those disrupting others will be asked to leave. It's hard to talk to one and get your point across when somebody's talking over you. Time management. Time limits will be set for speakers as well as for questions. This gives everybody a chance to speak. Focused discussion. Please stay focused on the agenda items. Side topics will be placed in a parking lot. We have somebody that will take notes that if there's something else that you want to be discussed at another time, and if we can have time to get to it, we will get to that. But we're going to stay focused. This is on the wastewater project. Active listening. Please listen with an open mind, ask questions to clarify, and consider viewpoints different than your own. Everybody has their own opinion, so just be mindful of all that. I'm Jackie Organ. I'm the Warden of Victoria County, and I'll also be your chair today. As Leanne is going to introduce staff in a minute, and as our speakers talk, they're going to introduce themselves and what they do. That's it for now. Leanne McCaffrey.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Leanne McCacken, I'm the CAO for Victoria County. We have several staff here today, and there's one that's going to be speaking here as well. So Leanne McCacken, the CAO. There's Alex Redden, our CFO. Jessica Klein is our digital communications. Over in the corner over there, Steph McLeod. She is our our municipal clerk. Just had a title change. Kelly Brett is our public works supervisor. Then we also have our council members here. Sitting up beside Jackie is Councillor Tim Donovan for this area. We have Councillor Perla McLeod from District 2. We have Wanda Hennick for District 8, and we have Fraser Patterson for District 5. So we have several representatives of council here. So, I'm going to go over a couple of things about the history of this.
It's a little hard to hear you.
Perfect. Don't think I've ever heard that before. So, the question is, why are we doing this project? So there's been several discussions on wastewater systems in Ingonish dating back to the 1980s. So there was a report done to council in 1990, and a couple of things to note about it. So back then, it was advised that the test results that came back from a report that was done, there was no serious problem back then. So back in 1990, that was 35 years ago. So if there were septics in place then, they were probably good then. They're probably still operating fine, but back then there was a way to fix them. But both the Department of Environment and Health don't think it warranted spending money then. However, without further services, there's no room for expansion in this area. So why are we doing this? When you can have a smaller lot, and with the projected growth in the area, there's an opportunity for jobs, for people moving here, for increases in opportunity, in several different things that the municipality can control. If there's lots more opportunity, growth, investment, it actually could flip the switch and taxes could start to go down. So why are we doing this project? So a wastewater treatment plant has been on District 6 priority list for at least the last 15 years. In 2019, the county started applying for capital funding for this initiative, both federally and provincially. A pre-design report was needed for completing the applications that we did. And so we've used that application on several different opportunities that we've had for funding. Older septic systems As well, so we know that there's older septic systems in the ground, and we also know that we want to plan for future development. The community cannot grow without it, as was noted in a report back in 1990. So we applied for funding that came out, and in 2024 we were successful. It's not very often that you get 50-cent dollars. Usually a project goes in and it's a third provincial, a third federal, and a third municipal. We were lucky enough on this project to get 50-cent dollars. So where is it going? So after we received the provincial grant, we did a survey. We sent out surveys to everyone in the Ingonish area that could potentially be serviced to gauge interest. So we sent them to the catchment area of where our water system currently is. We plotted the responses on a map. We did it old school. We had red dots for no's, we had green dots for reds, and we had yellow dots for maybes potentially within the next 10 years. We plotted them all out to determine a potential route. So these survey results that we gathered all the information, we took them to council in July 2024 of the responses that we received. So a recommendation was brought forward to proceed with a route based on the positive responses, yeses and maybes. Councillor Daphne, who's here in attendance, he recommended at that time that we proceed with a route as far as we can within our budget to service as many homes and businesses that are in favor of being serviced. So I'm going to hand it off to Alex to talk about the next important question. How much? Want me to do that?
So as Leanne mentioned, this has been on the radar for quite some time, but we formally started including it in our capital budget back in 2022 to 2023.
Alex, come closer to the microphone.
I hate microphones. So this has been included on our capital budget for the last 3 years. And we considered it a funding dependent project, meaning that it wasn't going to go forward unless we got funding for it. And then as Leanne just mentioned, we did get funding in 2024. So I do want to note that budget approval means spending approval, and that's not unique to Victoria County, that when it's on a budget and when council approves the budget, whether that's capital project, whether that's our operating budget, when council says that that's okay, that is the approval to move forward. So there has been some comments that there's been no motion for this project specifically, but we don't typically have motions beyond a budget. The one exception would be is if we're going to take another step and borrow for that, council must approve borrowing for a project. But for a capital project that's included on the capital plan, if the capital budget is approved, it's indication that we can move forward. So that's just the minutes from April 23rd, 2024, where the most recent capital budget was approved. So I'm talking about the capital side. So we're saying this is a total investment into the area of approximately $15 million. So the funding sources from this, it's 3 sources that were approved as part of this capital budget. So we received approximately $7.3 million from the province of Nova Scotia, and that was through their municipal capital growth program. And then council approved a $2 million direct contribution from our capital reserve. So our capital reserve is just a savings account that the municipality has for future projects. So that is money that we already have in the bank. So that is a direct contribution from the capital reserve, leaving $5.7 million, which we anticipate to be financed through debt, but also making those payments with money that we already have. So not charging more for the debt, taking the money, the payments from the capital reserve to make those annual payments over 10 to 15 years. So that's the capital. Then there's the operating costs, so the annual costs to users. So we are estimating that there would be a one-time connection fee charged by the municipality to people that hook up initially, and we're estimating that to be $1,000. I mean, I'm going to disclose, we haven't run a wastewater treatment plant before, so I give the caveat that this is new area for us, but we've done a lot of research on this. We're anticipating a connection fee of $1,000. We're also anticipating billing to be very similar to your water bills. So it would be a base charge to cover the fixed costs that don't change, and then there would be a flow rate based on the usage that's flowing out. So it's worth noting that the more users that hook up, the lower the cost that it is on a per user basis. So just to put some numbers to that, so in year one, if we had 45 two-person homes connect, plus the development that we know is going on in Cape Smoky and their projections for the first year, we're estimating that it would cost a user to hook up $900 to $1,500 per year for what you would receive as a bill. So that equals $75 to $125 a month. In year two, if we saw more homes be built in the area and more people then chose to hook up, so say we had 75 two-person homes, plus potentially a small apartment building coming online in this, again, and taking into consideration the growth that's going on with Cape Smoky, we would see the costs come down because, again, more users means lower costs. So we're estimating a range of $750 to $1,200 a year, equaling $62.50 to $100 a month there. And again, in future years, as more users hook up and also as more development happens in the area, the costs could continue to come down on this. Just for illustrative cost comparison purposes, so the municipality runs a program where we provide lending for septic upgrades that are happening. So we just provided financing for a septic in this catchment area of this project, and the bill to replace the septic in that area was $25,300, just as a cost comparison on this.
Can I get a point of clarification?
Sure.
As I understand from what you're saying, hookup is voluntary, it's not mandatory?
Yes, I think we're going to address that at some point, but yes. Do you want to talk on that?
Yep, sure. So in the MGA, there's nothing in the MGA that says that you have to hook up. So currently we don't have a sewer bylaw because as Alex said, we don't own a sewer, we don't have one. Council is of the opinion right now that you are hooking up if you want to. And again, the more users that hook up, the less the costs will be. I would like to throw one more thing in there, a caveat that the MGA says you don't have to hook up, but if you are hurting the outflow, so if there's outflow that is going into the ocean that is harmful, there is something in the MGA that says that you would be made to hook up. Again, council has not discussed this and has not decided on that, but we are supposed to be looking at responsible infrastructure and sustainable growth. And so I think it's also important to protect the ocean or any of the runoff. So it is something that will have to be discussed by council as well. But at this point, I believe council is under the opinion that you don't have to hook up.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like a clarification. Does council have the authority to mandatorily make you hook up?
So that was the question that was just asked.
Well, yes, but it wasn't really answered. I'm asking the question, can the council decide to make everyone hook up that's affected in the area? And my further concern is, if there's that real concern about somebody's sewage system impacting the harbor, I guess I asked the question, what will happen with the outfall in the harbor? We'll answer that later. Thank you.
Forgot to mention something when we started. We're going to let everybody go through their presentations, all one by one, and then we can ask questions. And it's going to be one question per person. Excuse me, Mr. Burke.
Well, excuse
No. Can I finish, please?
Sure.
It's one question per person at the start. And if we have time, and if there's more questions, you can ask a question again. not getting up and taking over the whole room, asking question after question after question after question. We'll let everybody take their turn, and if you have another question, we'll come back to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're having question and answer at the end.
So then in terms of connection costs, so the way that wastewater systems work is that the line comes to your property line. So it is the responsibility of the homeowner to bring a lateral line from their property to connect to the main line. So those costs would be borne by the property owner. We did ask for a potential estimate from a contractor of what that might cost. It is very dependent on the distance, so your house is away from, like, there's a lot of factors there. But the range that we got was $50 to $250 per foot. Again, depends on location, terrain, all those things. But we do have the potential to, I mentioned that water and septic lending upgrade program that the county has. So that offers financing of up to $15,000 over a 10-year period at prime rate +2. So there is the possibility that that program could be extended further so that if people wanted to hook up, but they found the one-time connection costs to be too much at once, there's the opportunity to finance it through the municipality and spread those costs over 10 years. That's it for me.
So I have one more slide. So we've been hearing that people are looking for more information. So we are currently in the process of looking at a new website called Engaged Victoria, and it will be a project-based website. So we're setting up this engagement hub for the county, which will include this project and any other projects that we're working on. Residents will be able to find the latest project information, updates, timelines, and contacts in one place. Residents will be able to subscribe to receive project updates by email notification to keep up to date with this project. We don't have this website up to date yet or up and running, but it will be there. And anything, hopefully any of your questions that you have will be answered through there. And if you have other ones, please contact us and we can put that information out there, because I'm sure if one person has it, more have it. So now we're gonna hand it over to Strait Engineering, who are gonna talk about the technical side of this.
There's a couple things I want to point to on the screen, so I'm not going to try not to use the mic, but if you can't hear me, just let me know and I will try and make that work.
Can I ask a free question? Can we close that blind because the window's shining right on the
Okay.
screen? Thank you.
Good.
All right. So thanks everyone for coming today. Thanks to the county for having us as well. So I'll start off just a little bit of background about us. So Strait Engineering, founded back in 1983. The current principal or the owner is myself, Daryl Myeth. I've been with the company or owned the company since December of 2021. Some other key players in the project. So Bruce Latimer, he couldn't be here today, but he is our project advisor / design engineer. So he's kind of one of the key guys working on the design. We have Mike Shea, who's sitting right here. He is a project manager with Strait Engineering. And Steve Weller, he's with E.N.G Environmental Technologies, and he's also the Fluidine rep, which they're providing some of the process equipment for the sewage treatment plant. So he'll get into some of his experience a little bit later on. So a little bit about our experience. So we've been carrying out engineering, consulting, and design for countless water and wastewater design projects since about the mid-1980s. We've been involved in a large number of wastewater collection and treatment projects in Cape Breton and eastern Nova Scotia. So these include numerous upgrades to existing plants and also new sewage treatment plants with various technology. So the technology we're using for the Ingonish plant is a sequence batch reactor, so SBR for short. And for this technology that we're using, we've also used the same technology for places like Afton, Mabou, Port Hood, St. Peter's, and Mulgrave. And all of those projects listed there, those locations, Steve has been involved with us in those projects as well. So I'll hand it over to Steve just for a minute here to go through some of his experience.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. All right, good.
This is on.
Okay. As you know, I'm Stephen G. Weller, E.N.G. I have over 35 years experience in water, wastewater treatment design support all through Atlantic Canada and beyond actually. And you can see some of the plants here. The one at the upper front on the right-hand side is a project that I did in St. Phillips. It's called the Cove. You can see it right on the ocean front. This particular house or plant has $1 million homes surrounding around it, and there's no complaint of smell or odor. You can see that's a water treatment plant in Marystown and Portugal, St. Phillips. Same technology, it's fluidine. We have offices in 2 locations, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and also Portugal Cove, Newfoundland. Oh, you're taking it again.
Take it back, yeah. So sewage treatment plants. We did up a little map here, and this is kind of what I wanted to point to. So we're looking at Cape Breton in eastern Nova Scotia, which is kind of like the focus of where we do a lot of our work. We haven't included CBRM because we don't really do any work there, but just wanted to go over this map to show, locations of other sewage treatment plants. So we have Afton here. There's 2 plants in Guysborough, 1 in Canso. We have Port Hawkesbury, we have Mulgrave, Ayrshire, Richmond, St. Peter's, get up into Escatoni, Benek, Jansen, Waikagama, Port Hood, Mabou, Inverness, and Cheticamp. So pretty much all of those plants, we've either done the design or we've been involved with some kind of retrofit or upgrade. And all of these plants would be similar to Ingonish, having a discharge out to a body of water, whether it's the ocean, a harbor, a river. So sewage treatment plants, they're all over the place. Nothing really new for our area. So somebody may ask what it actually looks like. This is a picture of Mabou sewage treatment plant that was done back a few years ago, and Steve was involved with us. So as you can see, a lot of the tankage is really hidden underground. You just see some covers, a fence around it, and usually a small building for housing some of the equipment, an office, electrical equipment, and typically has a basement, which also houses the UV treatment. So you can see it's pretty aesthetically pleasing, and the building can be built however you want, brick, metal siding, whatever.
Here we go again.
Back to Steve.
Okay, so this is one reference, again, that I've come back to. It's St. Phillips. It was done back in 2002. It meets all the effluent requirements and actually better. You can see the jars there. They're actual samples that I took because I ran that plant for 1 whole year until we got an operator. And you can see it's quite clear. The treatment plant, in this case, it's a duplex system. You can see the arrangement. It's a multi-tank. There's a UV system. You have blowers. And this will remove biological, BOD, TSS. Your disinfection level is 4 log removal, 99.99 kill of any pathogens, viruses. And also there's a significant amount of ammonia and phosphorus reduction. Here's a schematic of the process, multi-tank. You have a trash tank, surge system there, and then aeration. This is showing the decant aspects. Shows flow still coming in because you have your surge tank, your decants, sludge settles, and then you have a clear supernatant with decanter entering the UV system.
Yeah, so just gonna go back one slide, but just like what Steve was saying, so basically this water, so after the settles system off, goes through our UV ultraviolet light system, and then that would go to your outfall and then out into the harbor. Just
What temperature does it go out at?
Temperature? Well, actually, the process is exothermic. So even though we have cold liquid coming in, the biological process actually raises the temperature a little bit. And we do have temperature sensors on, and typically it's around 20 to 22 degrees in the summertime, and around 18, 15 in the winter.
all right, so I'm just going to get into a little bit of progress to date. So we completed, as I think Leanne had mentioned there, a pre-design study for the county. So that was for the installation of the collection system and the treatment system. Basically looked at an area from Cape Smoky Development to Ingonish Beach and right up to the national park boundary. So we considered sizing the infrastructure to accommodate the park as well as Celtic Lodge. As part of the study, we reviewed the collector sewer servicing strategies and determined the optimum arrangements. So I'll get into a map of that here shortly. So for the sewage treatment plant and citing its location, we assessed a number of locations around Ingonish Beach. So things we had to look at were harbor depths, that plays a key role, available lands, and required separation distances from residential developments. So based on these, some of these additional factors, but on these main ones, the site at Cape Smoky Development was chosen. So continuing on with some progress to date, we've had early conversations with Nova Scotia Environment, or Department of Environment, DFO, Transport Canada, and Department of Public Works. All those entities will require permitting. We engaged Dillon Consulting, so they have a short presentation here after ours, but we engaged with them in 2024 to carry out a receiving water assessment for the outfall. So we provided them with the wastewater volumes that we determined would be generated and gave them the required discharge objectives. So based on the community interest provided from the county with the poll that they did, the collection system extents were proposed and costed to ensure budget constraints were met. So the sewage treatment plant design is well underway, using the results from the receiving water assessment by Dillon. The technology selected, as mentioned, is an SBR, which uses aeration batch reactor technology. So it biologically treats the wastewater, allowing for the discharge effluent to meet the regulatory requirements. And then the final part of that treatment is the ultraviolet or UV to provide deactivation of E. coli, coliforms, viruses, and other pathogens. And as I mentioned earlier too, we have ordered the process equipment from Fluidigm, so that's on order and going into production. So this is kind of an overall map of the Ingonish area and for the collection system. So we kind of go up to the park boundary, and this is all based on the survey that would have been done by the county. So they provided us the results, all the yeses, nos, maybes, and we did an assessment from there to determine where it made sense to actually have the collection system run.
You have picture of that, but I can't see that.
Okay, if you want afterwards, I do have it printed out in like 24 by 36 sheets, so I have a couple of them, so afterwards if you want to come up and you can have a look at it, then that's no problem. So yeah, collection throughout the community, some of the side streets, and then basically that'll be pumped through, all down through the main, Cabot Trail Highway, all the way through, and then up to where the treatment plant's going to be located at Cape Smoky Development location. So next steps for the project for us, so continuing discussions and making the final applications to Department of Environment, Department of Fisheries, Transport Canada, and Public Works. Still working on the sewage treatment plant design, the drawings, and that'll go out as a package for the construction of the sewage treatment plant. Then we have the outfall, still working on the design and drawings. Those are getting pretty close to being finished, and there'll be a tender package going out for that. And then, of course, the collection system throughout the community. So that same thing, we're getting started on that design. First step will be surveying once kind of snow levels drop, but that design and the drawings, and then a tender package for that work as well. So once the tender packages are ready, gone out, assess bids as they come in, and then start looking at executing the construction contracts. So actually physically getting out there and doing the work. And of course, throughout the project, continuous engagement with the community, stakeholders, and various permitting agencies as required. So that's all for Strait. I'll hand it over to Dillon.
I do have 4 kids, and so I think my voice will carry well enough, but if I'm not, please let me know and I'll step up to the mic. But Brad McLean, Dillon Consulting. First of all, I'll say our engineering friends here, we're the science side, so we're not engineers. But basically, I have a bachelor's in chemistry and a master's in geology, studying groundwater, water, and chemistry. So when we get requests for receiving water studies and water treatment plants, we've done a lot of them. Dillon has offices in both Sydney and in Halifax, and I've been working with both since 2001. Makes me feel old talking about that, but anyway. But yeah, so we work on receiving water studies, mixing models, we do Sydney water work. We sometimes compete with each other, and we sometimes work with each other on the various engineering and science projects, but I'll let Olivia introduce herself in a second. Dillon Consulting has been around and in Nova Scotia for decades before I was born. There was Porter, then Porter Dillon, and now Dillon, so you can recognize us through one of those acronyms. But now I'll let Olivia speak a little on the biology side.
Hi, Olivia Buddy. I'm assuming you can hear me as well. I'm a aquatic biologist with a decade of experience in this type of work. My role in a project like this is making sure that any of the effluent coming out of a treatment plant won't have any acutely toxic or harmful impacts on the existing marine or freshwater environment. So my role is to work with Brad, who specializes in water chemistry, to ensure that any of the effluent is meeting all of the regulations or exceeding the regulations to ensure that their design is in compliance with the assorted regulatory agencies that we have to consider. So that's kind of our little background here. So we did complete a receiving water study. What that means is we took a look at the ambient water quality, the design considerations from Strait engineering, and basically figured out where would the effluent go and what would that effluent need to look like to ensure the safety of the marine environment and human health. So Brad will provide an overview of that study.
So again, our study was mostly on the water quality at the point of discharge. Now, for part of that, we have to assess the suitability of the harbor. So we did baseline sampling, so we did TSS, or total suspended solids. If we use acronyms, I'm sorry, I will try to spell every one of them out. But TSS is just how much sediment's in the water. The requirements are very low in the parts per millions for all discharge facilities. It doesn't matter if it's a municipal or an industrial. You're not allowed to dump milky, chocolate milk style sediment laden water out. So, the pictures that they were showing, it has to be clear. That is one of the requirements from the Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment. We usually just say CCME. But the whole idea is the water treatment plants. Canada has one of the better industrial world processes for developing and improving, and they're always working on it to make it better. Historically, you guys have probably heard Halifax Water used to dump raw sewer out. it no longer does because of the CCME, or Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment, requirements to upgrade and get these treatment plants up and running. Our country's old-ish, and because of that, we have lots of old systems that don't do a great job of that. Those guidelines were developed with Environment and Climate Change Canada, or ECCC, Environment Canada, and with NSECC, Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change, again, sorry for the acronyms, and DFO, or Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So they all have our best interests at heart when they develop these guidelines, and they are pretty stringent. And, you know, to their credit, the engineers designing the treatment do have to do it to make sure that all the sludge is out of it. It's got to be clear water going out of it. When they say UV treatment, it sterilizes it, so there's very few bacteria there. For context, Ingonish Harbor naturally has a bacteria loading in the thousands of counts per 100 mils of coliforms.
How deep is our harbor, sir?
It varies from a few meters to tens of meters, and
Examples of water from 60 feet down?
we took them in the outflow area, but again, for this questions, we're supposed to keep that to the end.
That's my question.
Yep, okay.
Did you sample the bottom of the
Can,
ocean?
can we wait till he just finishes his
Yeah, sorry, we have to keep the questions to the end so we can get through this. We don't want to keep people here past supper time. But the whole idea, though, is with the guidance from the feds and the province, from the environment and DFO, the water treatment plant criteria are pretty stringent. It's not quite drinking water, but it's pretty close. I wouldn't drink treated effluent from anywhere for context, but it is pretty pristine water relative to the harbor. Wouldn't drink the harbor water either. But,
So let's talk.
yes, oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, you're putting it.
Looking here and talking there. All right, the mixing zone. When it comes out, and for context, it's not allowed to be at all toxic when it comes out the pipe. But it has a mixing zone to actually see what the criteria is going to be at the edge of it. That is predetermined by the feds. They have guidance very clear based on the size of it and where it's discharging. But basically, with the outflow design proposed, it's going to be for this system. When it comes out the pipe, it's almost instantaneously mixed more than 10 to 1. By the time it comes to surface and starts spreading, it's mixed on the order of 70 or 100 to 1 of water that's already clear and free of any bacterial loading. So it's going to meet criteria when it comes out the pipe essentially, but definitely before it mixes. And the mixing zone is limited to 100 meters around the outfall.
And by mixing zone, we mean the rate at which it'll dilute, or where it'll dilute in the existing water.
And to the opportunity here, tidal zones are good in that they offer a large body of water and tidal flushing. There are many smaller, I think some of them were even highlighted in the previous slides, where they have to discharge to rivers. The same criteria is being met in both considerations, it's just it's easier to meet the objectives in a situation like this, and it's much more difficult in situations like that where the outflow represents 10 or 20% of the flow in the river. You don't have that here. Within 100 meters, it's diluted more than 2 orders of magnitude, 100 to 1, and it already meets criteria essentially within the outfall. Inland seaward flow, yes, and tidal flushing, it does go back and forth, the tide goes in and out.
We will note that the tides are considered when we're developing our any dilution ratios or developing the mixing zone. So we are aware this is a tidal system. That's considered right off the bat when we're looking at any effluent numbers.
And the other thing to consider is we don't consider the best case scenario when we're doing these mixing models. We consider the worst case. So we consider the highest possible flow when the system's at maximum operating capacity, and generally speaking, the lowest amounts of dilutions at low tides or dry periods. So we're not considering it to be perfect conditions when it's coming out the pipe. We're considering it to be worst case and then holding them to the federal and provincial environment and DFO criteria for it. Whew. Yeah.
Can you go to the next?
I think I covered most of that.
Yeah.
Core mix mixing model is one developed by universities and accepted by all of the regulators. Oh, did I get ahead? What the? Oh, sorry, am I going the wrong direction? Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yes, I think you got it.
Took the wrong arrow, my apologies. Receiving water study identified, oh wait a minute, let's head over to you now.
I'll do the next two.
We'll tag team. Receiving water study identified the following key findings. We identified the effluent quality objectives, EDOs. And again, EQOs. EDOs are the discharge objectives at the end of the mixing zone. So what are the substances that will, that will protect the environment, and what are the discharge levels that they need to meet in the mixing zone? These are all preset by CCME, Canadian Council of Ministries of Environment, and DFO, and the local Environment Canada and Nova Scotia. We're not making any numbers up here. These are ones protective of fish and humans. Now we can go down to you.
Okay. So how this works when you're doing a receiving water study is the first thing we're going to identify are the EQOs. So those are the environment quality objectives that the regulators that we're abiding by have set for discharge substances. So that's things like total suspended solids, coliforms, nitrates, things like that. So we review all of the regulated values. We're looking at the size of the system, and we're pulling out which ones apply to this type of wastewater treatment plant. So we will have a full table of all of the guidelines that apply to what's being discharged here. From there, we have a dilution ratio that we've determined through the mixing model. So that is from 100 meters, how dilute will the effluent be. From there, we can look back through the EQOs and the dilution ratio and calculate what is the value at the pipe, at the discharge point, need to be in the effluent so that we have met or exceeded all of the quality objectives within this mixing zone. So within where the effluent is going to be fully diluted into the receiving water. So that means that all of our discharge objectives are set using the quality that is determined by the regulators. We're not, again, like numbers are calculated, there's a science to calculating them, and they're all not acutely toxic or harmful to marine life or human health. Compliance-wise, all of these EDOs, so the discharge objectives, or what the effluent will be composed of, is going to meet regulatory guidelines because they are considered in the design process. So the wastewater treatment receives these quality objectives during the design process so that they can design the system to meet the objectives that we have determined to be applicable to this site.
And for context, there is monitoring. Like
Yeah.
he was showing you pictures of, assuming samples you were collecting or water that would have been sampled. When you commission the thing, it is sampled. When you operate it, it is sampled. There are guidelines and schedules they have to follow and meet.
And it goes to a laboratory that's
Accredited,
certified.
independent laboratory that does nothing but environmental sampling.
Correct. So we won't have to go into the numbers specifically. We can if they come up during the questions, but we just wanted to highlight that this study was done so that we can fully characterize what is the receiving environment and what can the receiving environment handle basically from this treatment plant to ensure that there's no harmful or negative impacts to human health and safety or to the aquatic life.
And most of the compounds we're monitoring, they're nutrients. So you have to monitor the nutrient loading so that it doesn't get too high, so you don't get algal blooms or things that could adversely affect fish or other wildlife.
Correct.
The whole system is designed to bring those down to very manageable and environmentally sustainable levels.
Correct. There's no expectation for this to be taking industrial waste or
Won't be permitted to take
Yeah,
industrial
exactly.
waste. It's a
Sorry. Yeah.
municipal system.
Thank you for the word. So again, there's no bioaccumulative concerns with this type of treatment, and that's basically it. It's a pretty, I guess, from our side of things, a pretty straightforward treatment based on the receiving environment and the fact that there is tidal flushing. So.
And we do have to work with engineers to treat much more complicated systems than this. This is standard fare. It's nothing new or exciting. It is small scale, municipal, easy to deal with technologically.
So we can answer any questions on numbers or.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying at the end.
Yes.
I was not finished my sentence.
Mr. Bain?
Thank you, Ward. name is John Bain. I'm the director of the Eastern District Planning Commission. The Eastern District Planning Commission provides planning, building inspections, subdivision services for Victoria, Inverness, Richmond, and Ingonish counties, as well as the town of Port Hawkesbury and the town of Ingonish. So I'm basically the director of planning for the municipality of the county of Victoria. David McKenzie is my building inspector, and he has an office up here one day a week. So we do your building inspection, subdivision, dangerous and unsightly premises, anything that a typical planning department would do, that's my responsibility. So the reason I'm here this afternoon is to talk about subdivision, primarily subdivision. The difference between the lot sizes that you can get if you're on a central water and sewer system compared to the size of lots that you can get if you're putting in your own septic system. So what's a subdivision? Subdivision is basically to convey title. You're going to have to subdivide your land to convey a portion to family members or anyone you want to sell a piece of property to. You have to go through subdivision. And it's regulated. The thing that I like about this part of the slide is that most of that is the province. So I'm administering provincial stuff. It's the Municipal Government Act, the Nova Scotia Subdivision Regulations, the Environment Act, the On-Site Sewage Disposal System Regulations, all of that is provincial legislation. Then Victoria County has a subdivision bylaw, and we're proposing, as you know, a land use bylaw for the whole of the county, and that's on its way. So there's two types of subdivisions. Subdivisions for development and subdivisions that are not for development. And subdivisions for development, they are divided further into those that are on an on-site system, so that's your own septic field, and those that are on a municipal system, central water and or sewer systems. And this is what determines the size of your property that you can create. I should point out at this point that if you've got a lot that's smaller, you can build based on technology, but you cannot subdivide smaller lots based on technology. I should have also started my presentation like my colleague did here by saying I'm not an engineer because I want to distance myself. So subdivisions not for development. There's two types of subdivisions not for development, and usually this is something, you have 100 acres and you're wanting to take care of your children, make sure that they get part of the property, so you can subdivide for a non-development purpose, and that's the main one. Is people want to take care of their estate, and they're subdividing for the purpose of the children's inheritance. But there are the Municipal Government Act used to allow you to subdivide by will, and you could do whatever you wanted by will. And that caused all kinds of problems. Because you could literally subdivide your property like a checkerboard, and then your children would be trying to build on those checkerboard pieces, and they couldn't, right? So you can no longer subdivide by will, but you can do a non-development subdivision subject to certain requirements. So these are the central water and sewer service regulation sizes for lots. So if you've got a system, if the system is put in, the lots could be with central sewer service only. You're talking about a 10,000 square foot lot with 20 feet of frontage and a 50-foot circle, 50-meter diameter circle in it. So basically something that's going to be 50 by whatever that multiplies to give you 10,000. And I'm not an engineer, so I can't do math. That's about 200 feet, I guess, 50 by 200. And if there's central water and sewer system in place, it's down to 5,000 square feet with a 15 meter, so 50-foot diameter. You could do 20 feet of frontage, but that's, that doesn't work. So it's basically going to be a 50 by 100 lot, a 5,000 square foot lot. That's a typical lot in Nova Scotia on water and sewer services. We can go smaller than that with a land use bylaw, and so that's something that we would probably be looking at in the future. If you don't have water and sewer in place, these are the requirements for if you want to put your own system on the property. And since most of Cape Breton is either rock or clay, we're pretty well completely in that first area, right? 0 to 149 millimeters of permeable soil, so about 6 inches of permeable soil will give you a 9,000 meter, so a 2.2 acre property with a 76 meter, 250 foot circle. That's also the not for development side. So if you came in to me with a subdivision plan, you were subdividing your property all into 2.2 acre parcels with 250 foot circles being shown on them, and you tell me it's not for development, then we don't send it to environment for them to check on it. You just get those lots created. And then it goes, the deeper the permeable soil is, so that down to 900 millimeters, 35 inches of permeable soil. And I don't think there's any place in Nova Scotia that has, that used to be called Category 1. I don't know of any place in...
There's a couple places in the valley, but that's about it.
Yeah, and maybe around Malibu, you know, but there's... So that's 900 millimeters, 2,700, that's less than an acre. But I think around here, I'm going out on a limb here, I'm gonna say it's rock or clay. You don't have a lot of permeable soil, right? So 0 to 149 millimeters, you need a 9,000, 2.2 acre lot, 76. So those are provincial requirements. I can't change those. That's what the province has in their wisdom, determined to be the sizes of lots you can create based on your soil conditions. The other non-developable lot is the other end of that spectrum. So something that's less than 5,000 square feet, that's not going to have a system on it, you can create. So I've seen them 20 by 20 for a family cairn kind of thing, or I've seen them for graves or stuff like that. Less than 5,000 square feet, you could do a 20 by 20. The problem with doing the smaller lot in a place where you're less than the 9,000 square feet is even that little bit, taking it out of the bigger lot, might not be possible because you're making your bigger lot smaller. But if you're going, you know, up the mountain somewhere out in the woods and you want to do a monument, family monument or something like that, 20 by 20 is the smallest you can go. The biggest you can go is less than 5,000 square feet, and the application would say not for development purposes. I think that's all I've got. Oh no, that's the so that's the definition of the provincial regulations. The subdivision regulations apply to anything that's less than 9,000 meters squared, 75 meters or more in depth. But if you're bigger than that and you're saying it's not intended for development purposes, then it doesn't need to be assessed against the Department of Environment requirements. And so what else am I supposed to know? Lot requirements, difference between, but so from a building code point of view, if you're getting a building permit from us and you're building on a system, we're going to need something from Department of Environment, your Department of Environment approval as part of that building inspection service. If you're on a municipal system, all we're doing is making sure you can make the connection. So there's some discussion back and forth between us and Public Works to make sure that you're in a place where you can make that connection. Because the worst thing for Public Works point of view is that you build the building, everything's done, they don't know the building's built, and then you're knocking on their door because you want to turn your water and flush your toilet, and there's no connection yet. So try to avoid that by cooperating. And that's really all I have. I do have a bunch of my cards. Against my better interest, I brought them. So if anybody wants to grab my cards afterwards, if you've got any questions, you can just email me. Again, David is our employee. He's our kind of face of the District Planning Commission in the community. And again, in the question and answer session, if you want to ask any questions about subdivision, building permits, zoning, I'm going to be fielding those.
Thank you, everyone. So we're going to have question and comment period.